Goggles, gamer-goggles.com, and today we're going to flip through Tomb of Annihilation. I know, it's been out a while, but it took me a while to get it, and over the holidays, I had a lot going on. Unlike most of my flip-throughs, I've actually had a chance to play this, well, several times. Without wasting any more time, we're going to start getting into it. By now, you all know that Tomb of Annihilation has early Dungeons and Dragons roots. It's related to the Tomb of Horrors. And that's kind of sentimental to me because Tomb of Horrors is one of my earliest D&D memories. I died many times playing Tomb of Horrors, along with what I think is probably my favorite dungeon ever, White Plume Mountain. So I really kind of can't wait with all the things they're doing, going back to the roots and reinventing them for new players and gathering up the old players to be a part of this. As you open the book, you've got the foreword, and basically Tomb of Annihilation is a story about death and the lengths individuals go to avoid it. That really does pretty much sum it up right there. So in the introduction, actually before we get to the introduction, something they did that I find really cool is they have all the different personalities listed in the book by page. Here it tells you a little description about who they are, what page to find them on in the book, and I think that is a very useful tool. I haven't DM'd it, but I think it's, as a DM who likes to look things up and can't remember everything because, maybe I'm getting older, I like the tools like that. And we're going to get more into tools later on. So basically, with the introduction, you come up to the story interview, which the Tomb of Annihilation is largely about, how do I say this without being too many spoilers? A curse that they have come to know as the Death Curse, which is actually up here. This is all I need to do. I'm going to try and do this without spoilers. So basically, you guys get hired as players, and then you go to this really rough and tumble place called the Jungle of Chut, or Chult. One place in the book it looked like an eye, and the rest of the places it's clearly an L, like right there. It says Chult, right. Where am I looking? Right there. Which is, tropical jungle. Tropical wilderness. And you meet this individual who hires you and goes on, and the Death Curse basically stops people who have been raised from the dead in any fashion, not undead, raised from the dead in any fashion, from living, and they start to degress back to death. That is the basics of it. There are other great story plots in the game. There is, and we'll get to some of them. There's a paladin who has become Yanti, who has fallen from grace. So, in starting the adventure, basically, your job as the GM is to get the players into the place where they can explore the jungle and research the curse. Now, with that being said, the first 13 or 14 pages are pretty much information on the things that you're going to encounter, the way that Tomb of Annihilation presents them. So you have the port is the next chapter, and it's everything you expect from a city. There's plot hooks, plot twists. You get to meet a lot of the characters. One thing I will note about, I want to go backwards a little bit. Tomb of Annihilation, and actually all of the 5th Ed books, their maps to me have come up a level. I love map making like this. I'm not very good at it. It's a skill that I want to develop over time. So like I said, again, most of the next chapter is meeting the different people that you're going to interact with on a fairly regular basis, or if you're a GM like me and have parties like I have, they might not want to be a part of the city, and you're going to have to create your own little tools, but just pop those PCs out of there. And then chapter 2, you start to go and explore the jungles. Again, without too much giving away of stuff. Here you go. Here's one of the major players in the book. And you're going to get a lot of that. So take a look at the maps too. The maps are really good. I don't want to give away too much on the maps, but the maps in the book are very special. You know, you go through chapter 2, and it's basically the land of Cholt, and then you get to the Forbidden City, which is kind of a precursor. And then the 4th chapter is the Fane of the Night Serpent, which has a lot to do with the Fallen Paladin I was telling you about, and a few other little things that I'm not going to mention too much. In the last chapter, or is it really only the last chapter? Yeah, the last chapter is really Tomb of the Nine Gods. And these are like pseudo-demigods or almost gods. Maybe you know, you can call them deities if you want. But this tomb is really pretty tough. There's a lot of nasty stuff in it. A lot of traps, and you know we'll get to my take on some of that without destroying this. At this point, I can say that you can play Tomb of Annihilation probably several different ways. It gives you a sandbox that doesn't feel like a sandbox because you can play this book basically in story progression. So, you know, you don't necessarily go A, B, C, D like players are being railroaded, but your players might jump around that plot pattern a little bit. Or you can run it hardcore meat grinder and just kind of throw them into everything. I think it's a little bit better from playing it as a player that you don't run it as a meat grinder, or you don't try and play it as a meat grinder. Let's see, I have gone through 7 characters. Actually, everybody in our party has gone through around 7 to 10 characters, and we haven't finished yet. We are just at the tip of the tomb, which I'm hoping I don't spoil for anybody because I have read it for this flip through. But there's a lot of nasty stuff, and the other thing too that they kind of give you a way to do is scale things up and down. And you can do all of that. Let's see, where am I? I'm not in the appendixes yet. Now, one of the things that I found amazing about this book is there's like 255 pages, and the first appendix starts on page 191. And a lot of those are handouts, which for this kind of a campaign, I think you really need. This is actually one of the first handouts that you'll be giving your players. It's a partial map of Cholt. A new bestiary. So there's some of the PCs are here, like that guy. Man traps, other crazy things. Grunge. This guy. Huge undead titan. Like I said, it's not easy. Without scaring you too much. Let's see. Here's the different things that you can discover. I'm not going to go into detail about what these are because there's a lot of spoilers in here. So, without being too crazy detailed, you can see that there's a lot of new stuff here. But what I will spoil is that there are some new backgrounds, and you can have adopted cultures, like all your regular stuff. There's new personality traits. Some of these I didn't read them all, so some of these might actually go ahead and be in the main books just as filler here again. But the archaeologist, an archaeologist learns about long lost and fallen cultures. I mean, it fits very well with this game, right? And the new skill proficiencies are history, survival, Tool proficiencies he gets are cartographer's tools or navigator's tools, a language of choice, and obviously some equipment. And then your signature item is the 10-foot pole, or, well, you can roll it. Do it however you want, right? Silly me. Anthropologist. I didn't go over it. Skill proficiencies are insight and religion, 2 languages of choice, some equipment, and then you can adopt a culture. So basically, you become a cultural chameleon. So what do I think? I mean, I didn't give you a lot, and for those of you that want a little bit more, I suggest in a week or two you go read my written review, which might... I'm going to try real hard not to have it include any spoilers, again, but it'll be more in-depth. This is just to kind of get you a look at the book and stuff, but what I do think is they have done a wonderful job of bringing first edition stories into 5th Ed with this book. Like I said, I played Tomb of Horrors, and I thoroughly enjoyed dying. This campaign is extremely difficult if you run it as written. And PCs will most likely die playing in this adventure. Most especially if you run it as a meat grinder. If you run it as a meat grinder, things are going to die. Players might get frustrated. My advice to GMs is to listen to what their players need. I just lost a thought. With that being said, it's new enough as a story that if you're a first edition player and you play this, it's going to be a totally new experience. You can use this as a sandbox background for your own adventures, or create your own little side adventures to this. There's enough information in the book. You can create your own stories with that. All sorts of things. The traps are extremely difficult, but one thing Tomb of Annihilation has definitely done right is, or I should say the authors of Tomb of Annihilation have definitely done right, as they have always given the party, the PCs, another way. They don't necessarily have to set off the traps all of the time, but there's almost always an answer to figure out how to get around the task at hand. That is what redeems this compared to some of the older Dungeons and Dragons things where you just showed up with 10 or 15 characters for your game session and hoped that one of them lived. Yes, that is how we played Tomb of Horror and a few other campaigns back in the day. So, should you buy it? Or who's better yet, this is one of the first times that I'm going to say, who is this for? This is for anybody who is a fanboy that wants to experience first edition story with the 5th edition rules. It's pretty much that simple. Anybody who wants a super challenge and isn't afraid to die, this is a good one for you. If you're not really into solving puzzles, facing a massive dungeon ahead of you, this might not be the campaign that you want for your players. As a GM, I can only imagine that this can be a frustrating headache at times, because it is, well, I'm going to say complicated. The traps aren't easy. The things that the traps do to people aren't easy. And if a player dies with the death curse, they die. Reanimation does not work in any fashion until they solve the problem of what's causing the curse. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day. See you next week.